I would have to go and find the facts, but there are laws and rules and regulations with respect to government contracts, and there are times that corporations do things they should not do, in which case they tend to be suspended for some period. There are times then that under the laws and the rules and regulations passed by the Congress and implemented by the executive branch, that corporations can get off of out of the penalty box, if you will, and be permitted to engage in contracts with the government. They're not generally not barred in perpetuity.
This company was never in the penalty box. If you could proceed to my second question, please.
The second question, I've forgotten what the second question was.
I think Ms. Jonas knows it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. McKinney. I appreciate the question. I appreciate your interest in our department's financial condition, and we are working very hard on that program. I've just come back recently.
I understand that you're working hard on it, but my question was, who has the contract? How long have they had that contract, and how much money have we spent on it?
In general, we spend about $20 billion in the Department on Information Technology Systems. The accounting systems are part of that. I can get you the exact number for the record of what we spend on our current, what we call legacy systems, and those that we're moving toward.
And who has the contracts?
That would be a multitude of individuals.
Could you name some, please?
Well, I think off the top of my head, well, I would rather not. I'd rather provide that for the record.
That's not privileged information, is it?
I'm sure it's not.
Well, please. Yeah. And we still have time, so please.
I would be glad to provide for the record. I don't want to talk from the top of my head and be incorrect.
On your first question, I'm advised by Dr. Chu that it was not the corporation that was engaged in the activities you characterized, but I'm told it was an employee of the corporation, and it was some years ago in the Balkans that took place.
It's my understanding that it continues to take place, and
is that right?
Yes.
Well, if you can give me information to that effect,
I'm sure you are interested in all of the information that I have, and I'll be more than happy to provide it to you.
Good, thank you.
But I would also like to get information from you.
Okay.
For example, the information that I just requested about who has those contracts.
Certainly.
Let me assure the gentlelady that we'll make sure that this exchange of information takes place, and Mr. Secretary, if you can get back with us on the DynCorp story, we'll get that to the gentlelady.
So yeah, contractors for the United States government are involved in child kidnapping and, sex slavery rings. And what's our guy say? Your representative, your Donald Rumsfeld, the guy you pay, says, well, we put sometimes some people in penalty boxes, but they're not in there forever. Now, I know you don't believe me. Hey, take a look at the picture of, here's the Chicago Tribune. It's not me saying it, okay? Now, it's funny, here's a governor who writes to Rumsfeld saying, hey, this is not right, something's wrong. Isn't it funny that governor, Baglievich, all of a sudden he's on the hit list? That's just like New York State, when it was the governor of New York named Spitzer who all of a sudden got on the, he's going out with call girls list because he was saying the banksters are ripping people off on Wall Street in a big way. But just back to the ugliness, how bad it can get, okay? Here's UN. The UN's involved in the whole child slavery thing. Yet you fund them. You fund the United Nations. Who wants, you think it's going to get better when they take over this place? Look at what these criminals do. Okay, here we go. I live in Sharon. I reside in Sharon, Massachusetts, the home of, when I say the home, he's not home here, but who represents me in Congress? Barney Frank. Okay, let's find out about Barney Frank. A little bit more you should know about Barney Frank. I'm going to read you a little bit of history because you Sharon viewers maybe forgot because you were Democrats and you loved Barney Frank. Okay, yeah, Representative Barney Frank, Democrat of Massachusetts, was reprimanded, a punishment less severe than censure, okay, by the House of Representatives after he acknowledged having paid for homosexual sex in the mid-'80s. All right, so he's a homo and he likes buying it. Whatever, okay? The same year, Frank admitted that he permitted a young homosexual, Stephen Goby, to rent the basement apartment in his townhouse. Guess he doesn't live with his wife while in D.C. or whatever, right? Frank was found to have fixed more than 300 of Goby's tickets. Boy, Barney's a good guy to know. Wasn't Barney's boyfriend over at Fannie Mae? Oh, yeah. Oh, the housing bubble thing? Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, parking tickets, which led to Frank's censure. Oh, my gosh. For fixing parking tickets. Gets better, though. After additional investigation by local newspapers, Frank admitted to having to have paid $80 on 2 separate occasions for sex. Okay? Gobi later told the press that for 2 years he had been operating a homosexual escort service out of Frank's apartment. Rather interesting, huh? Barney. But you Sharon viewers will continue to elect him because, this whole pedophiles in government thing, you're in love with that theory. See what we've turned into? Is it time to turn the boat around, or do you want your missing children to end up with these people? It gets better, okay? And that he also used the counselor's office at Chevy Chase Elementary School as his base of operations, leading to a number of newspaper reports that Gobi was engaged in child prostitution. The principal later resigned at that school. But once again, this goes down in the 80s, and you Sharon viewers, you Democrats, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter to me, because you know what? You find out that, there's gay porn stars in the White House when the Republicans are in. You find out that there's child kidnapping and sex slavery and stuff. And what do? You fund it. You sit back and you do nothing. You're starting to make me upset. So, what I have for you, let's see. Here's a little list I want to show you of the different pedophile things. Remember that Jane Palfrey or whatever? And she came out and she said, I used to do call girls to the Washington people. All of a sudden she's hung in her own garage. It's a suicide. Remember when Gary Webb, all of a sudden comes out and shows you that the cocaine importation agency is moving cocaine in the country? He, by the way, was the San Jose Mercury News reporter. And what did you find? You found he killed himself, a suicide by 2 shotgun blasts to the head. Listen, viewers, please listen. It's a time in your life where you have to consider joining the tyranny response team. You have to inform your neighbors that there may be criminals in our government, and they're doing illegal things, and they're being told that they're above the law and you're below it. And you ought to pay more taxes while they do what? Okay? Meanwhile, they're a bunch of perverts, but you're supposed to be straight. You go and take a leak on the side of the road, you're in the sex database or whatever, right? The sex offender database. Yet I can have, my Congress. Should I go into all the stuff with the pages? Take a look at the list, okay? Okay, here's a little video, because you don't think that, white male prostitutes are in the White House. Here's not me. Here's the news telling you.
And if Washington doesn't have enough to talk about these days, the Washington Times reported today that unidentified White House aides in the Carter, Reagan, and Bush administrations now are being investigated for using the services of a call boy ring. The paper reports that 2 of the male prostitutes were given a late-night tour of the White House last year. The White House press secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, said he knew nothing of this investigation. NBC's Lisa Myers reports her sources in the U.S. Attorney's Office say the investigation is not focusing on prostitution, but on fraud involving the use of credit cards to pay for the call boy services.
At some point, we, as citizens, have to realize that we are the power and that we have the power. We have to wake up and think for ourselves. We have to study history and see when we see history repeating itself to stop and do something. Okay? It's time for you sports fans to man up, to get up away from your stupid high-def Red Sox baseball game season crap, okay, and start protecting your family and protecting your children and protecting your grandchildren. This is not the first time in history they've created economic slaves. When I tell you that, John Holden writes that he's going to put drugs in your food and drugs in your water. Here in my hometown, they mass medicate the populace with fluoride. Look it up. Have some homework time. Start protecting your family. Okay? When you find you have pedophiles and you have, when you have criminals in your government, what ends up happening is usually not good. And when you give your government more power, when I say your government, any government more power,